What happens when an injured lion trapped in a thorn filled pit locks eyes with the only person willing to help? What followed on that silent savannah morning shocked everyone who later heard the story. The early sun hung low over the savannah, its pale light filtering through dust and thorny branches. The air was dry and heavy, carrying the faint scent of scorched earth. A faint breeze stirred the brittle grass, but the calm was broken by a deep, uneven sound. It was not the proud roar of a lion, but a broken groan that echoed from a hollow in the ground. Near the edge of a neglected field, a wide pit lay hidden beneath thorn bushes. Once dug by hunters who never returned, it had become a silent trap. Inside, a lion struggled. His golden coat was torn and darkened by blood where sharp thorns pierced his skin. The heavy mane, usually a crown of strength, was tangled with dry branches that held him down. He thrashed once, twice, but the effort only drove the thorns deeper. Each movement brought another shudder, another low cry of pain. His chest rose and fell with rapid, shallow breaths. Above the pit stood an old woman. She carried a wooden staff and a basket that rattled with dried herbs. Her name was Amina, and she had walked this land her entire life. She had heard the cry while collecting water and followed it until she found the source. Now she looked down, her eyes wide, torn between fear and duty. The lion lifted his head, his amber eyes locking on her. For a moment, the raw force of the wild burned in the gaze, yet it was dimmed by suffering. He tried to growl, but the sound broke apart, rough and uncertain. He lowered his head again onto the dry earth, his body trembling from exhaustion. Amina knelt at the rim of the pit. Her voice was quiet, steady, almost a whisper to the wind. "You are not alone," she murmured. She placed her staff aside and began breaking long branches from the thorn trees. Slowly, she lowered them into the pit, arranging them as crude steps. The lion watched, ears pressed back, body rigid. His instincts urged him to fight, but he had no strength left. From her basket, she pulled out a length of rope. With slow, careful hands, she tied a loop and lowered it near the lion's front leg. He jerked at first, snapping his teeth at the rope, but the attempt was weak. His breathing grew louder, a rasp that filled the pit. Minutes dragged. With every tug, Amina pulled thorn after thorn free from his mane. She spoke softly, the words flowing like water, though they were more for her own courage than for the animal's understanding. The lion groaned, his paw twitching as she tightened the rope and guided him toward the ledge. His body scraped against the thorns, leaving trails of fur and blood. The pit seemed unwilling to release him, but with each strained movement, his massive frame inched upward. Finally, with a surge that drew the last of his strength, he heaved himself out of the pit and collapsed on the ground beside her. Dust rose around them. The lion lay stretched on his side, chest heaving, sides torn by scratches and punctures. His tail twitched weakly, his eyes half closed. Amina stepped back, her heart pounding, but she did not run. She stood in silence, watching him breathe. For the first time, the plain was quiet. No bird call, no rustle of wind, only the sound of a wounded lion fighting for breath and the steady beating of her heart. She had done what few would dare. She had freed the king of beasts from a death trap. But as the stillness settled, new sounds broke the air. Footsteps, rough voices, the clatter of metal. From beyond the brush, figures were approaching. But what happened next to the lion was even more unexpected. You will not want to miss this moment. The sun climbed higher, burning through the morning haze. Heat pressed down on the earth, and the scent of dry soil mixed with the sharper smell of crushed thorns. Cicadas began their steady hum, a harsh rhythm that filled the silence. But over it came something else. Heavy steps, rough voices, the metallic clink of weapons carried without care. The lion stirred at the sound. His ears flicked back, his eyes cracked open, and his chest rose in a sharp breath. Though his body was weak, his instincts sharpened. He lifted his head slightly, lips curling to show worn but still dangerous teeth. A low growl rumbled in his throat, thin at first, but growing louder as the voices drew nearer. 3 men pushed through the thorn scrub. They moved with the ease of those who had walked this path many times before, their eyes fixed on the lion immediately. One of them smirked, lowering the barrel of his weapon towards the wounded animal. The lion tried to rise. His legs trembled, muscles quivering under the weight of his own body. He staggered and fell, claws raking the dust, leaving shallow grooves in the earth. His breathing grew harsher, the rasp echoing in the heat. But still, he did not take his eyes off the men. His gaze burned with a mixture of pain and defiance. The old woman stepped forward, planting her staff firmly in the ground between the lion and the intruders. She said nothing at first, her silence louder than any words. Then her voice carried across the clearing, calm but steady. "He belongs here. Leave him." The men laughed. Their reaction was sharp, mocking, cutting through the air. One of them shook his head and spat into the dirt. "This one is finished," he said flatly. "We take him, or he dies here anyway." The lion's growl deepened, a vibration that rolled through the ground like distant thunder. His sides heaved with the effort. He pushed himself upright, swaying but standing, his mane heavy with dust and thorns. His tail lashed once, sending a ripple through his body. Every part of him screamed exhaustion, but he stood as if the earth itself demanded it. The men hesitated. For the first time, the strength of the lion's presence held them still. He was broken, but he was not defeated. His eyes locked onto them, unblinking, daring them to move closer. The old woman bent, gathering a handful of dry grass and scattering it near his feet, as though grounding him in the soil he had fought to reclaim. Her movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial, but her body shook with tension. She knew the balance could tip in any direction. The lion swayed, his breathing ragged, but he did not fall. His body became a wall between her and the men, his growl a warning that the savannah itself had not surrendered him. And then, in the sharp silence that followed, something shifted. A sudden noise cracked through the air, a sound that neither the woman nor the men expected. The lion reacted instantly, and the clearing turned from tense to explosive in a heartbeat. The climax of his story begins now. Everything will be decided in the coming moments. You cannot miss what happens next.